I think you can see my slides now.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, so as we know, again, welcome all of you who has come to listen to this webinar. As Professor Reddy mentioned, very important topic of today, plastics. We talk about a lot in terms of plastic waste management, and also more of plastic waste mismanagement. I would say plastic mismanagement after its end of life. So we'll talk about some of the issues, challenges, some opportunities, what kind of new things are happening in this particular domain in India and also in around the world. And and then try to highlight some of the things that I think that should happen, where we should more focus on to really solve this issue. So to get started, first of all, if we can just say, and again, anybody has any question, please put it on the chat box. We will take the question towards the end. So unless you have some very burning desire to ask, otherwise in the webinar it becomes a bit difficult. So I will advise that put the questions on the chat box. So before we get into plastic waste, first of all, just a very simple, like just a quick primer of what is plastic. Plastic, as we know, it's a synthetic or semi-synthetic organic, uh, very high molecular mass. And the beauty of plastic is that you can mold it in numerous shapes and sizes. As you can see in the picture here, you can put, there are many things, very different kinds of products, which is you can see on the screen on your right hand side. That product is actually not possible if plastic or plastic type material is not available. So, as it's a basic hydrocarbon, and you add a lot of you can add colorants to it to give different color. You can plasticizers, stabilizers, fillers. So all those all influence the properties of plastic, and they also become problematic when you look at the plastic waste when it becomes end of life, because this colorants and plasticizers and stabilizers, which are essentially adding a lot of organics and sometimes inorganic chemicals, they do leach off from these plastics when they come into the disposal stream, and if you don't manage this properly. So it's a versatile, durable. That's why it was like the reason why we are using plastic. Once you make a good plastic product, it lasts forever. And that is becoming a nuisance because we are not using it properly. I keep on saying again and again, and some of you have learned who have listened to me in the past, I say that plastic as a material is actually not a problem. The problem is the mismanagement of plastic waste. We are not using this plastic material in an effective way, environmental friendly way. Although if you look at from plastic, it does help a lot too. Our automobile sector, they have become so lighter. A lighter automobile means you have better fuel mileage. Better fuel mileage means less carbon emissions, better for the environment. So that's the benefit. You look at the food packaging, extends the shelf life of those food products. So that is also good. Yeah. So but if you don't use, and in the end of life, if you don't use that material properly, then it becomes a nuisance. And the usage of so many of single-use plastics, that is becoming a big of a problem. They are designed to be non-degradable. So that's why they are actually, the beauty of the plastic is that it should be non-degradable. That's why we can use it for a longer period of time. It is cheap. So these are the reason why we have been using so much of plastic products. So when you look at any plastic, there are variety of, we call it resin code. So there are different types of resin code out there. You look at any plastic product, you see from 1 through 7. So 1 is your PET, then HDP, your PVC, LDP, polypropylene, which is PP, polysterenes, and then others. And at the bottom, you can see that percentage of global plastic waste for different types is some ranges have been given. We get a lot of PET and HDPE. PET and HDPE, those green ones, the green colored ones, they are easy to recycle. We can do recycling of them. The difficult one is that the one which is your, say, polystyrene is very difficult, and then manageable is LDPE and PP. They're manageable. PVC is difficult. But another problem, what happens is all these different plastics gets mixed together. They mix together either in the waste stream, or they also mix together as a product. We use a lot of blended plastic. So when you are using a lot of blended plastic, it's very difficult to separate them into different resin code. And in that case, other than just using it for maybe waste to energy or some those kind of application, it becomes very difficult to recycle them. And those single-use plastic, the thin plastic bags, very thin ones, which you use in the grocery bags and other, you go to the vegetable market, they give you those bags. They are also quite nasty material, very light material. They flow around, they choke the stormwater drain, and that doesn't have much economic value, so that doesn't get collected very well, especially in the informal sector in developing countries, and that becomes a huge nuisance. So again, if you look at, it's not the plastic as a material is actually not that problem. It is all the mismanagement associated with the plastics chain. The supply chain of plastic is what is the problem. So we need to address, the address should be more on what happens is we of course banning certain use items, certain single use item is a welcome step, but we cannot ban all the different types of plastic packaging and other things that we use. We don't have replacement for those, so we will be using it. So banning is a welcome step. It's a but it's not enough. We have to have a robust plastic waste management infrastructure in every urban sectors in India and across the world. But I'm focusing more on India right now. But you look at in across the world, it's very much important, developing countries as well as the developed countries, to have a robust plastic waste management infrastructure. In this graph, what you are looking at is what is the total plastic produced, which is the big circle, and then the dark color one, the dark red color one is what is the portion of plastic waste which is mismanaged. So as you can see in India, which big chunk is mismanaged. Now, the data for a country like India and many developing countries is that our data is not very nicely collected. We don't do a very good job in terms of data collection, like if because we have so much of things happening in the informal sector, we are able to capture those. Although the graph, if you look at the figure here, which is the circle in the middle of India, it's a small circle. It's kind of shows that it's a huge amount which is being mismanaged. But I don't know how much of that is being, that the informal sector's contribution is being captured here, because we don't have good estimate or good measurement of those data types and in there as well. When you go to the formal waste management infrastructure kind of in US or Norway and other countries, you see the mismanaged is quite low. Then we do use a lot of most of the plastic is packaging. We use a huge amount of plastic in packaging. We also use in buildings and construction. We use in other sector, textiles, transportation, electrical, electronics. And if you look at in terms of polymer type, LDPE, polypropylene, HDPE, PET, polystyrene, so variety of plastics are being used. And they are being used in different industrial application that happens. So now what happens to in terms of the plastic waste? So plastic waste coming from municipal sources, which is what you and I produce on a day-to-day basis in our house. That's as part of the municipal solid waste. Then also from the industrial sources, then it could be other sources, some things does come in. They become part of the land litter. There are micro beads. There are several plastic products. So there are several products like some of those scrub that we use or the toothpaste that we use. They have those micro beads of plastics there too. And there are a lot of different glitter and all those have micro beads. Many countries have banned them. And there is litter in the inland water, industrial leakages, marine litter. So all those different sources of plastic, these are kind of the primary sources of plastics getting into the environment. And over time, what happens is they get fragmented. They get degraded. Degraded means they get actually broken down. That doesn't get final by the degradation happens on a very long period of time, hundreds of years, like around decades to hundreds of years. But it does get broken down, and then they become part of microplastics, and the microplastics is kind of becomes more dangerous. So if you look at the big picture, like in terms of the problem that we are looking at, so this is kind of you're looking at catchment area where these are showing the different sources of plastic, ports and harbors, garbage dumping site, washing of clothes. Even when we try to use this recycled material, is recycled plastic is being used in certain clothes too. In fact, just yesterday and today, it was in the news that our Prime Minister was wearing that jacket, which was made from a recycled PET bottle. It's great. It's a great use, but we have to be careful in terms of when you will be washing those recycled PET containing stuff, you will get little bit of microplastics leaching off and getting into the water system. So same thing happens with any plastic based polymer. So that's why washing of clothes does contributes to plastics getting in there. Even detergent has sometimes these beads of microplastics, like a micro plastic beads present there. Tourism, pilgrimage center, land and marine littering, plastic manufacturing, sewage treatment plant, fishing, shipping industries, they drop a lot of, as you can see in the picture over here, variety of sources are there. And towards the end, I will show you another some more examples of how plastic ends up in the ocean. So stormwater runoff, river streams, so these are the pathways, so these are the sources, then we have the pathways. Then fate of plastics, they get into the fish, they get into the fish gets choked down, coastal surface water, beach sediments. So everywhere we are seeing this plastics ending up. And most of the plastic in today we are seeing in terms of several garbage patch. The biggest one is Great Pacific Garbage Patch, but then there are North Pacific Gear, Indian Ocean Gear, South Pacific, North Atlantic, and all these, as you can see in this particular picture. I hope that there is a small clipping of video. It must be working on your computer as well. On the left-hand side, on the top and the bottom, you can see this is how it looks like. This is like a how our oceans are looking like because of mismanagement of plastic on the land. See, unless we fix, there are a lot of focus on cleanup of ocean, cleanup of rivers. Great, we should do that. But because you see that picture on the right hand side, the problem that we have created. But the thing is that unless we cut the supply of plastic getting from the land to this water bodies, this is a unending problem. It will keep on happening. So we need to stop that. We need to close the tap from the land to the water. And that's where having a proper plastic waste management infrastructure is very, 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 very critical. And I really get worried sometimes that, because sometimes what happens is when we have when certain bans and other things gets announced, we have a tendency to think that problem is solved. अरे ban कर दिया, अब तो कुछ जरूरत ही नहीं है. Like we have banned something, so we don't have to worry about for future. No, because you still have this plastic in packaging and all those different sources. It will keep on coming to the our waste disposal system. So we have to address those. So what is happening when the plastic is ending up in the ocean or in the water bodies? Ingestion in the fish, entanglement of marine species, invasive species. It is becoming like on the plastic bottle, you get invasive species kind of growing on it. Coral reefs destruction. You can see that lots of plastic pieces. By 2050, it has been estimated that we'll have more plastic pieces in ocean than the fish which is out there. Then here you can see this bigger there are different rectangles here. Bigger the rectangle means bigger the numbers for that particular kind of species, mostly fish and seals and other things, and marine duck, polar bear. So this on the left hand side here, these are all plasticized animal species. They got entangled. On the right hand side is what got ingested by those. So we found them in the inside the flesh. Number of species with documented records of marine debris ingestion. So when they ingest this material, it goes in there and they feel full. Though this fish and other aquases, they feel full because this plastics is not going to digest inside their body. It will not be that their digestive system cannot really take that. So what happens? So their stomach gets full, but they're not getting good nutrients and other supplies, and eventually they die. And then they become and then we are losing certain like a population of the species, or their health is getting compromised. And at the same time, they do bioaccumulate, like from the smaller species, the bioaccumulation from the smaller species to the middle fish and the bigger fish, and then the humans consume it. You saw the dot 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 dot. So that's like a humans getting that plastic. So there has been some studies where they found that 1/4 of the fish contained plastic. 1/4 of fish sample from the fish market in California and Indonesia contained plastic fibers and pieces in their guts. So you and I are, if we are fish loving person, we may be consuming a little bit of this microplastics already, like in our body, which we don't want. And the thing is that, as I said earlier, the beauty of plastic was that it can last for a longer period of time. That's the reason why we started using it. In fact, when the plastic bag concept came, plastic as a packaging material concept came to replace the paper, it was said that paper is actually going to cause like a deforestation, that we to save the trees, to save the environment, let's move to plastic. That was the thought process. And if you go by the concept wise, of course there is I will put a big question, big caveat there as well. I'm not saying that plastic is all good, but what I'm saying is it does help in terms. If you look at the life cycle of a paper bag versus a plastic bag, in fact plastic bag life cycle is better but to paper bag. But if you don't manage that plastic bag properly, it is in its end of life, it becomes a huge nuisance. So that's where we need to stress on. We need to make sure that plastic leaking out, either from the industry or from our waste disposal system, actually gets addressed properly, get managed properly. That's the focus should be. And as you can see over here, it takes a plastic bag 10 to 20 years, your nylon fabric 30 to 40 years, fishing line 6,000 years, plastic bottles 450 years. These are the number of years it will take to really decompose and degrade into the environment. So, and then in terms of because of lot of chemical ingredients, which I told you earlier, and the chemical byproducts that is being used, the chemical ingredients that is used, all phthalates, PBDs, BPA, nickel, lead, PAH, and all those things that is used. When this plastic, mismanaged plastic enters our environment, these chemicals do leach out and start contaminating the soil, contaminating the water, and of course, at some points, even contaminating the air. It becomes a clogging of sewers. Many cities, like for example, during the rainy season, when it will come, this monsoon will come, you will find many big cities in India, the stormwater drain is actually choked with this plastic bags because we have not managed the plastic waste properly. And it's a mismanagement of plastic waste which is the problem, not the plastic as a material. There is a difference there. I hope I'm making that difference clear. So we have to focus on managing that plastic waste in our from our municipal waste sources. So otherwise you will have this clogging of sewers, then you mosquito breeding. These are all pictures. Urban flooding, because again clogging of sewers are there, so you're where the water will go, it has to go somewhere. So those problems you will see, and then your surface water gets polluted and all that. So those things we need to kind of look at. So in terms of the different chemicals which is present, like bisphenol A, phthalates, POPs, like which is persistent organic pollutants, dioxins, PAH, PCBs, they do have a lot of negative impact on our body in terms of mimics estrogen, interferes with testosterone, neurological, carcinogen, development effects, and does affect several parts of the body. That's the reason why you see so much of talk about plastic waste, is because we have kind of identified now that plastic is actually creating problems. We have even seen plastic in breast milk, plastic showing up in placenta in a small babies. So it's a huge concern, and the reason for that is the formation of microplastic, which is less than 5 mm in size, from the macroplastic which you and I use for the from a day-to-day basis. Presently, we are doing some research in this area in terms of how the microplastic gets into microplastic and how its fate and transport happens. One of my PhD student, Varaprasad, is working on that. So there are many persistent organic pollutants which is there in ocean, and then microplastic. What is happening is they do concentrate on the surface of microplastic. So this ingested plastic material, it damages the marine organisms digestive system, internal damage from aberration, and that has a population level consequences too. So here you have all these release, then you have fragmentation, then microplastic formation, microplastics, nanoplastic ingestion by fish, then human consumption by aquatic animals, and there is a estimated annual microplastic particle consumed per person is between 74,000 to 120,000, based on a study published almost 2-3 years ago. So where does this microplastic coming from? Synthetic textile, again, that's what we are using. So we are not banning those, so it is still being used. So you will see this showing up. Car tires, again, not being banned. City dust, road markings, marine coating, personal care products, and plastic pallets. So there are where these are the distribution of sources of microplastic in world's ocean. So that's where it is actually coming in. So that's the reason what I'm saying is just banning is not good enough. Banning is just one small step, very small step for this problem. This problem is much bigger than that and does require a very robust thinking, a holistic solution with a clear thinking of what we need to do. Which is sometimes I feel like we miss that part. We should focus on that part as well. So this some microplastic is showing of seafood, meat products, again fruits, vegetables, salts and sugars, drinking water, milk, and of course we talked about the food chain anyway. So there have been a study which found that microplastic in 93% of the bottled water. And don't go by the this manufacturers. It's only any bottle. This is that these bottles were tested. If you test some other bottles, you may find there too. But it's just these bottles were tested, and there were 325 average number of plastic particles for every liter of water sold. Then we are seeing organisms exposed to plastic in lab and the plastic detected in the environment. If you look at that, we are thinking in the fiber, film plastic, foam plastic, pallets, some unreported different types of sizes that we are finding them. So estimated daily we talked about the babies drinking formula milk from the plastic feeding bottle in first 12 months. They are consuming almost 3.1 million pieces a day in the UK, and the global average is 1.6. So that much microplastic pieces is getting exposed to the small babies. So why we should worry about them? The lab studies suggest that it can have a cellular damage, oxidative stress, or the tissue translocation, affects the tissue organ system, reproduction system, physiological endpoints are there. And so if you look at in terms of plastic pollution, variety of sources, and as you can see, most of these sources, because of the mismanagement, again, I stress on the part you will hear me talking about many times mismanagement. Because of the mismanagement of plastic on the land, we are seeing them ending up on the surface water and finally coming back to our food chain. Uh, if we can manage it properly on the land, having a proper system in the land, then we can kind of solve the problem a little bit. So here it can get into the wind. It's like degradation on there. It can move through to different places, and it is about 2,150 marine species encountered plastic in the ocean so far. So it's a huge amount, huge problem. And plastic manufacturing, like we have to cut down the usage of plastic too. Because of the throwaway culture, because of single-use nature of so much single-use stuff, we are producing a lot of plastic, and we are going to see a huge increase in plastic production in coming decades as well. By 2050, that will be equivalent to 615 coal plants of 2.8 gigatons of CO2 equivalent, 615 coal plants of 500 megawatt capacity. So that much, that would be the plastic production. Even with all the bans and other things that is going on, we will still need a lot of plastic. So we have to look at, do we really need that much? What we can replace this material with some other material, more greener material. So plastic waste is causing a lot of problem because like 32 in 2025, around 100 to 250 million tons of mismanaged plastic will be there. 600 million annual loss in tourism, 87 million European Union fishing fleet annual losses. Cost of marine litter is 8 billion. So that is 8 billion per year to cost to fisheries, aquaculture, marine tourism, and cleanup. So that's a huge amount of cost we are paying. So what can be done? How it is to be managed? Again, going back to the leakage that we are seeing to the environment. So what can we do? Of course, the traditional hierarchy method of any waste management, like let's try to prevent and reduce, reuse, try to do mechanical recycling, try to do chemical recycling, go for incineration finally, and then at the end, landfilling. But as we all know, it is actually what happens is it's the opposite. We see more and more landfilling, less stuff over there. But in terms of if we want to go for these different management technique, what they are, like we can go for mechanical recycling, which does happen. It helps in material conservation. It creates jobs as well. Feedstock recycling is the next step where we can look at we can fewer, if in terms of, if we do it in a industrial control way, we can have fewer air emissions, volume reduction, material recovery can be done. It's a flexibility of process in terms of feed and products. Byproducts are of economic values. Energy recovery can be done, and if nothing can be done, that goes to the landfill. So, and then in every process, of course, there are pros, there are cons. So there will be issues of corrosive nature, there will be of toxic emissions. So we have to manage, we have to come up with the proper operation and control of those technologies as well, and move towards more in terms of going towards what is known as the circular economy for plastic. Try to recycle plastic, all those types, as you can see over here, the ones the can collect it from the home, collected and then recycle to different products. And then the ones which cannot be recycled, we can go for a proper waste to energy, resource recovery from turning non-recycling plastic into energy. So that is what we need to focus on. But for any of these things to happen, you have to do source segregation. Unless that plastic is clean, unless you have the clean plastic coming into the waste stream, none of this process is going to work. So source segregation is the must, the number one thing there. So, and again, try to understand what is the extent of the problem. So we have to kind of try to get to the bottom of the problem as well. So how to prevent plastic from reaching the ocean. So this project was funded by National Geographic, where we looked at from all the way from Harsil, which is just below Komuk, to Bangladesh, to Bay of Bengal. We are on 10 different sites. We had a boat going along this line, and then we collected lots of water samples, and we collected this. We tried to understand how the plastic is being managed on the land along the river Ganges. That was river Ganges. If you can probably must have got that by this time. So this was our team, and in fact, one of the gentlemen who is on the audience right now, Gaurav, who is doing PhD in Chicago. You can see his picture. So he's right there. He was doing masters with me at that time. So this was part of his master's thesis, where if Gaurav wants to add later on, he can talk about that, where we had an elaborate sampling of plastic, focused on plastic, but also other municipal solid waste categories in these 10 different cities, how plastic is being managed, what is happening with this plastic, where this plastic is being ending up, how much littering is there, how much littering is happening along this set. So it was more applied focused research. The unfortunate part for this kind of work in Indian context is that when you go to DST or DBT, they always look for new technology. Technology is there, but how to make that technology work on the ground? Unfortunately, I'm very sorry to say, but there might be some people in the audience who serve on the panels of these agencies. They don't. I get a feeling that they feel like this is more of a consulting project rather than a research project. But the consulting, the government does not give money for doing these things. Municipality doesn't have money to give you for these things. State government doesn't have any funding agency. The only funding left is DST, DBT, Ministry of Environment, and they are always looking for some fancy technology rather than taking whatever is the existing technology, making it work on the ground. They don't. If you give that proposal, they say there is no science here. There is nothing there. So that doesn't get funded, and that's I'm talking about from with my personal personal experience in this area. So hopefully things will improve. People will look at the value of doing this kind of applied research, because that's what the country needs. The country, we have technology. There are so much technologies out there which have been developed in the lab, but many of those technologies never see a light on the ground because we don't support the research on the ground. We have to support that research on the ground as well by some sort of mechanism. Unless we do that, they never 90% of the technologies will never see the light of good technologies just die in the lab. They never come, they get implemented because they don't get support. And unfortunately, in India, still the industry, they rather focus on getting some technology from abroad than trying to have more engineers. They don't have funds also. Like, you have to understand, especially in the waste management sector, government has to do a lot of hand holding. I hope that thought process will come. So we also looked at in terms of how much littering is happening, what is there in the litter. Because see, if I go and complain to the municipal agency saying that you are having so much of plastic littering happening, the obvious question is, what is there in the litter? What can I do with that littered material? Is it broken plastic pieces? It is plastic wrappers? It is the packaging? We see, you can see from your naked eye that a lot of things are there, but unless you go and analyze it, come up with some data. So that's what we did. We did what is known as the litter density, litter density for that particular town near the river. So that these are the things when the storm comes, these are the things will end up in the water. So what are the things are there? So we looked at these plastic food wrappers, tobacco sachets, plastic fragments, papers, cigarettes, all these tracked items, several thousand items were tracked, and different places. These are the average litter density per square meter from Harsel all the way to Chafsan, Chandpur. So Chandpur, which is in Bangladesh, was the highest. Rajbari, again in Bangladesh, was the lowest. But the average, you can see that at different places, different kind of litter density we found. And for each place, we also had a detail like what is there, how much is plastic food wrapper, tobacco sachets, cigarettes, fabric pieces. So these informations was shared with the municipal authorities. I hope that they will make use of this information, and so that they know that what is the nature of the problem they are facing, so that they can come up with the solution to address this problem. So what is there? How much is plastic food wrappers? We had great detail, of course, in regular. This was part of a research as well. So we went around and looked at many different items, and these are all done using an app. Um, so for different like Patna and all, then we also sampled how much this waste is getting into the river and what is there in the waste, so that we can come up with a guesstimate. We can come up with an estimate, I would say estimate, of how much plastic is really getting into this river because of the mismanagement of plastic waste on the land. So those are some of those pictures from there. And the report is available on National Geographic website. You can, of course, go and download there. One thing we also found that when we were going through these cities and towns, we found that my plastic pieces are showing up in cow dung, cow's poop. Plastic pieces are showing up, which is kind of very alarming for someone like me who really love my milk-based sweets in India. Like I'm from West Bengal. Sweet is West Bengal means sweets, and mostly milk-based sweets. So I don't want to see plastic chemicals in my milk, which I'm consuming my rasagullas and all that. So it's kind of a concern in terms of if it is showing up in the cow's poop, that means the chemical might be there in the milk as well. So some those, and of course that needs to be researched on to find out. Then there was another project which we worked on with looking at plastic as a key to addressing ocean pollution. This was actually not a, this was more of a desktop study rather than a field work, which was done by high level panel. World Resource Institute funded this study for us. And this was a collaborative effort for many countries around the world. As you can see over here, 14, 15 countries were involved. And we come up with this blue paper. We're trying to have leveraging multi-state strategies to address plastic pollution in the context of already stressed ocean. And we three were the lead authors, myself, Jenna Jembek, who is in University of Georgia, and Ellie Moss, she's an independent consultant. So we three were the lead authors, but then we had the author from pretty much everywhere in the world. No, not everywhere, like 14, 15 different countries in the world. And it was globally represented from different continents. So some of the key, that report is again outside, available on public domain. You can download that, but just some key take home messages is nearly 1 dump truck of plastic per minute is getting into the ocean. So that much plastic is getting there. $13 billion US dollar per year damage to marine environment. Only 3% of ocean plastic is floating. So although we focus a lot on trying to clean up of ocean, but cleanup of ocean will do only 3%. Rest 90% is there in the water column or in the sediment. So that's the reason why management of plastic waste on land is very, very important. We have to cut the supply getting into the water. And nearly 2 million microplastic per square meter on the ocean floor. And where it is coming from? Industries, sewage treatment plant, vehicle wear and tear, crop and animal agriculture, solid waste, recreational boating, cruises, aquaculture, shipping, oil platforms. So it is from variety of sources that we are getting plastics, microplastics, and other pollutants also entering the ocean. So municipal sector, agricultural, aquaculture sector, industrial, maritime. So we try to look at different pollutants which is out there. We had basically it was more of a detailed kind of you can say a detailed literature review kind of work, looking and then analysis associated with that, with all the different published material in this particular domain, on then coming up with this report, and some sort of suggestions which I will tell you. So microplastic, macroplastic, pesticide, nutrients, antibiotic, heavy metals, and all that. And we looked at what is the impact on ocean, on the health of the species, the impact on the economy, and then of course, see, identifying the problem and then suggesting the solution to the problem as well. How we can address that? What can we do to in terms of improvement of wastewater, improve stormwater? What can be done in terms of green chemistry practices, resource efficiency, improve the coastal zone, having the local system and all that. So we all come up with all those recommendations, and then we also linked it to the sustainable development goal. Uh, and this was reported in Guardian and several other newspapers as well. So this is available, which you can, called a blue paper, and you can find that as well. So very quickly, what are we talked about plastic as a problem. We talked about some of the health issues. We talked about how to kind of quantify and look at the different aspects, global, regional level, local level. Now, what are some initiatives that is happening? There are some good initiatives happening in the informal, public-private, public community, and all that. So very quickly, I will go through that in next 5-6 minutes so that we have some time for question and answer. So there are people. There is a large and a small registered firms. They are coming up with some innovative ideas. Some NGOs are also coming up, doing some informal sector. So glass, for me, the glass is always half full. So I'm an optimistic person. So I like to see that there is but I want the things to move a bit much faster. I'm also a bit. You can say that you can say that I'm in a hurry. Like I want the things to improve faster, as opposed to what is happening on the ground right now. Things have to move at a faster scale, and it can if we do things properly. So that's what I was trying to highlight. So in terms of course, single-use plastic ban on earphones. But even on July 1st, 2022, it was banned. Today, we are in February of 2023. Unfortunately, I have been around several places in India since July, and it is still available. So although it is banned, but you can still find it. All those items that has been banned. So what are the people are doing that? There has been work on co-processing of plastic waste in cement kiln. This is a popular one, but at the same time, even for this, you have to keep the plastic clean. See, you cannot keep the plastic dirty. If you mix all the waste stream together, if the plastic gets dirty, even the cement kiln will not take it, because they have to. That's a raw material for them, isn't it? So it's an alternative fuel. So they have to keep it in a cleaner as well. So that is one area. Using road construction, again, as a civil engineer, many civil engineers in the audience, you will realize that if I'm using it as a replacement for bitumen in my road construction, I want it to be a clean. If it's not clean, if it's dirty, if I have to wash it, if I have to put a lot of water to wash it, and then create that wastewater as well, then I may not actually be really saving the environment that much. I'm solving one problem but creating another problem. That we have to look at the life cycle assessment in terms of, are we really solving that problem? So that's it's important. So we have to look at that part. Plasma pyrolysis, it's a bit costly side because it's a highly energy intensive. It can be used in some high-end products, but not that much useful for a municipal scale. Pavement blocks, in use of plastic pavement blocks, again, you have to keep the plastic waste clean. Plastic bottles to textile yarns, make a new fibers, create yarns, and that India does. We do make that. Even IPL T-shirts and all those T-shirts that you use, it's from that. Again, you have to keep that PET bottle as clean as possible. Road built to Bangalore, Calcutta, they are trying to say no to plastic during puja, and then recycle plastic to pave and repair roads. Plastic to fuel, people are working on. Plastic even using in the bricks, some of those bricks, even at Amrita University Cochin campus, they are doing some bricks, which I have seen there as well, which can be used for boundary walls and other stuff. They put a layer of, as you can see, the layer of cement and other things to prevent for the fireproofing and all that. it is being they are using the dirtiest. Some people are using dirtiest plastic into recycled granules, as shrink wrap or films. Again, I have to really. I'm a bit concerned about when they say that they can use dirtier plastic waste. Of course, you have to look at what kind of process they're using. This is an interesting stuff where they are trying to use this plastic bags, the thin plastic bags in shoes, the Thales shoes, which is again it's a quite innovative idea. Then using in recycle PlayStation, using so different types of so a lot of like startups and other things are coming in picture, but they do need, what I'm trying to say, that they do need a lot of support. Many times these startups, they struggle to find the correct source material. They don't get source segregated material. They don't get clean material. So plastic cleaning things has to be there. So there are some, like Banyan Nation is working on try to clean it. Informal, getting the informal workers into the supply chains. A lot of things has to happen in this particular sector. But there are a lot of good things are already happening there. So we do have a course on, as Professor Reddy was mentioning in the beginning of the webinar, do have a course on plastic waste management where we talk about these things in great detail. It's an 8-week course on SIAM NPTEL platform. It's offered usually in the autumn semester. In autumn, we call it autumn in India, fall in North America, in August to October, November semester. And it's and the YouTube videos are available for this course there as well. So I think that's it. I hope it was useful. I took around we still have around 13 minutes, if not more, for question and answers. So any questions that I'll be more than happy to take. So thank you very much. I hope it was useful. And let's see what questions we have.
Good, Brajesh. Thank you very much for a comprehensive overview of plastic waste management. I think it gave a really overall perspective of the challenges that we're facing, because everywhere I go there now